we will move now to the first speaker of the day, who is Raffaella Brumana, a colleague from the Politecnico de Milano, who is going to give us a presentation about building and sharing knowledge from quality-driven content models. So monuments are buildings, but monuments have memory. And because of that, we need to document monuments, buildings with their memory. And Raffaella, the floor is yours. It's going to explain to us a way of how the technology is moving in this direction to record 3D with memory together. Raffaella.
Can you see my screen?
I see your screen, but you have to, go to the presentation mode and then activate the appropriate window.
Okay, now it is okay?
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much, Raffaella.
Okay, thank you, Marinos. Thank you for CIDOC organizer. Thank you for inviting us. The presentation I'm going to deeper analyze with you is about what does it mean, the term quality when dealing with models in the modern assumption of BIM, that's to say building information models. And just to remember that the term complex, that is coming from the Latin complexor, it means to hold tightly, that's to say metaphorically to gird, to embrace, to comprehend. And Edgar Morin, in his system of the paradigm of complexity, underlined that there's the impossibility of understanding a complex mental structure from the wall of a reductive or simplifying meta structure. What we can do it is to start separate, but then we have to reconnect, to synthesize or make complex. That's to say to complexize. We could keep going on with Godel, with Prigogine, but we don't have time. So the important thing is that what we can derive is that yes, we can separate within the complexity of the heritage due to the different scientific interdisciplinary approach, but then we need a space where to reconnect all the information. That is one interpretation that we strongly need when dealing with the HBIM. That's to say the heritage building information modeling. In the CAD logic, we have just object in the sense of line or a vector or raster, but the meaning that they have inside is catched by our mind. In the BIM logic, like in the GIS logic, each object represents an instance that can be connected through its model to the information, not just one information, but more information. These things allows us to start thinking a dense system of relation in order to relate all the different complex aspects dealing with a monument, a site, or an object. For this matter of fact, we can perhaps group and cluster all the instances, the different objects within their families, but keeping all the attributes, the properties that are coming from our analysis. One very important thing that we can for sure assert when shifting from the BIM to the HBIM is that generally in the BIM logic, we the so-called level of development that it is made by the level of geometry and by the level of information traditionally defines a linear process from the design process crossing the construction site till to the life cycle management. Unfortunately, for the built environment, built heritage, and architectural heritage, cultural heritage, we cannot we cannot wait so many time to have a complex context digitization. We need to reverse the logic of complexity, starting with the complexity, and then, if necessary, we can simplify. So we have in the standardization process to reverse the traditional logic that it is characterizing the new construction BIM process that starts from the simple one, and then it is enriched while going through the different phases. On your left, you can see in brown the classic workflow for the BIM, but it is perhaps supposed a new construction from the design to the fabrication, the construction logistics, till to the maintenance plan, till to the life cycle management, the renovation, the facility management. For the BIM, the most complex phase start with is found analysis. That's to say, with 1 second within the long life cycle management of the heritage. What does it mean? It means that we have in the standardization and specification process, we have to reverse the logic and to insert missed parts. In our case are the collection of the historical reports and archives, that the so-called level of geometry 100, 200 with the appropriated 3D on-site geometry digitalization and data acquisition, till to the precise geometry, till to the BIM uses workflow, and then to the conservation plan and to the long life cycle management. So, and which are some parameters we can use in order to determine a quality model? For sure, it is not so easy to determine which is the best quality model, because we have many purposes because of the unicity and multiplicity of the subjects that we have to deal to. So we have different users, different experts, and we need to allow them to decide which is the best model for that objective. But being the objective very many objectives, we can start using the concept of scale in order to allow the freedom to adopt and to choose the proper scale, and in the same time to adopt the scale in order to share with this parameter the models that we are producing, in order to allow a very transparent reuse process among the different experts, also after the construction of the model. Of course, the concept of scale is very useful and generally used, perhaps in addressing the different technologies, the laser scans, the photogrammetric one, the networks, and so on. Because in function of the scale, we can also change and choose the different instruments, the equipments, and also the methods of data acquisition. And with the concept of the scale, we can also think to simplify or to complexize, as we were saying, the same object within different models. This way, it allows to clarify the precision from which it has been derived a surveying and a modeling. And this is just to give you an idea what does it mean to connect the scale to the model. It means perhaps to attribute a tolerance factor and a minimum detail of representation of the serving model. But for sure, the scale, it is not a standalone parameter. We need other parameter in order to tune a model toward a 3D quality model in order to extract knowledge for knowledge creation. And for sure, we have to connect perhaps the serving with the stratigraphic analysis, the analysis of the material, the historical documents, the so-called indirect sources. This way, we can connect all these data to the informative model. But once we create the informative model, the problem is not to lose all this information and to transfer and share on the clouds all this data. I'm going to show you just two samples on this relation that we can create among survey, geometry, materials, and historical documents. And to do it, we need to shift from the surfaces that generally is surfaces the first serving approach, because it is what we see. But then we need to go beyond into the thickness, to go beyond into the material, to use the non-destructive techniques, and so on. And what we need is to shift toward solid volume concept of the object. And to do it, we need to address our model toward the analysis of the state of the art, that it is made by the past stratified results across the centuries, characterizing the transformation phases, but impacted by perhaps the current hazard and pressures, and impacted by the state of the decay, and within a fragile context. To do what? To drive the preservation plan, to drive the future long life cycle management actions, and then we need to understand their behavior, to prevent the damages, to deploy knowledge transfer, and to transfer all this gained knowledge to the future generation. This is the case of the Basilica of Santa Maria of Collemaggio, that it is awarded this year by the Europa Nostra Award. It has been heavily damaged by the earthquake, the last earthquake. It is very famous in the world because it was established the first Jubilee and Forgiveness feast by the Pope Celestino V, who has been cited by Dante Alighieri in his poetry. And the church has been heavily damaged. During the earthquake, the dome has been crashed, and all the serving has been addressed to detect the out of plumb with an high accuracy corresponding to the scale 1 to 20. That's to say, with 4 millimeters of tolerance with the laser scans. All of these data coming from the out of plumb and coming from the section highlighted perhaps the false structure of the underground level respect to the area of the altars. Thanks to this precision, we could detect the different phases of construction and transformation across the centuries, from the first apsis nucleus till to the Angevin period dating back in the 1200s after Christ. also the pillars, the ancient Middle East pillars have been heavily damaged. In order to survey them, it was not enough the photogrammetric surveying and the laser scanning survey, even if with a very high precision, and we needed to carry on a direct surveying in order to detect ashlar by ashlar at the scale 1:1 all the damages, all the ashlar of these pillars. At the end of this work, we can say that at the end of the process, we could detect for some pillars the so-called Scucci and Cucci, the design project, that's to say without the total replacement of the pillars. We saved 50% of the stones ashlar on place. On some colors, we have been obliged to replace all the arches and the pillars. The BIM model was very useful in order to highlight all these units. But we made a step forward because we started connecting all the materials and construction techniques, not just the materials, but the way of assembling with the mortar and all the characteristics of the surface finishing, connecting with the historical documents dealing with this basilica. So we connected the geometry of perhaps the holy door and the holy wall, very famous because it is the door from which the pilgrims that the pilgrims use during the forgiveness feast. So it represents a very important value, not just for the authenticity of the material, but also for the intangible values. For this matter of fact, it has been related all the materials within the preservation plan. For each object, for each subject, for each element of the basilica, it has been connected not just the material, but also the decay, the analysis of the state of the decay. Perhaps this is the case in blue of the very important L'Aquila masonry apparatus made by limestone blocks and with the techniques that have been used in the past to finish and protect the surfaces. This is the end of the works of preservation that has been closed 2 years ago, 1 year and a half ago. And
Raffaella,
this is, yes?
We don't have so much time. If you can please check.
Okay. I have 5 minutes. Just to conclude, I want to use these 5 minutes in order to say that all this information can be related once to the other, perhaps to go on with the so-called archaeology building, that's to say to use the archaeologist methodology in order to relate all the stratigraphic units. To do what? At the end of the process, we have to avoid to lose such precious information, and we can reconnect all the information coming from the HBIM, as in this case, the case of a vaulted system with the same approach with the same system. But then we can relate all this data, perhaps by means of the use of virtual hub with semantical semantics access, and this way, perhaps a different kind of voltage system with their description, with the trompe, with all the geometrical elements that are not so easy, but that have been detected by the surveying, by the modeling, in order to model not just simple surfaces, but also very complex way of construction techniques, and they can be derived and assessed through space and temporal queries that will allow in the future to connect across the space and the time different kind of material, different kind of finishing, different construction techniques, but also recurrent elements that can be compared and detected across the European region, perhaps reconnecting the history of the families of working that so far are just known through the few written documents and a few sparse elements across our cathedrals. So I finished my presentation. I hope to have been in time,